Hey everyone, welcome to another recording session of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today are your regular crew, at least as far as lately your regular crew, Rob Morse from Self-Defense Gun Stories, and John Richardson from Only Guns and Money are joining us, are going to be with me tonight. Carrie Ann Auclair was supposed to be here, but she's apparently having technical issues, has not logged in yet. So if she does, I'll get her popped in here as well. But for right now, you just have to deal with the three of us. I have been so busy doing other things, I did not look at the open. We need to take Carrie Ann out of there. Here, I can do that. Just a second. There we go. We ready to cut this, guys?
Yep. Ready.
All right. And before we do that, I got to finish up over here. I'm sorry. By the way, everybody, if you want to get your comments in, get your comments on the air, just go ahead and comment on either the Polite Society podcast, Facebook, or YouTube videos. And we'll get those and get them on the air and discuss them as we're live. Yep, that's good. So I believe we're all set up over there. If we don't get to your comment, and you know you've commented, and you know it's relevant or funny or whatever, you may be on. If you're on Rumble, I probably won't see it. If you're on OpsLens, I certainly won't see it. If you're in a Facebook group or on another page that carries us, I may or may not see it. Just slip on over to the Polite Society podcast page or the YouTube channel and comment there, and we'll get them on the air. All right, guys, I am going to go ahead and we're going to bring in Massad Ayoob in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Massad Ayoob from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Everyone, welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this on Monday, June the 19th, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morse, and on tonight's show we talk about the inventor of the smart gun, who told California judges that gun control laws leave citizens with older and more dangerous firearms.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about the House resolution that would overturn the Biden pistol brace ban. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 664 of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right, we're back at 6 p.m. on Monday, which means it's time for another episode. I should say it's 6 p.m. in Central Time on Monday. And that's, everybody knows the Central Time Zone is the only time zone that matters. Time for another episode of the Polite Society podcast. Rob, what's been up since the last time you've been on Polite Society, man?
You know, it's been a typical week. We're still shopping for new firearms. We're going to the range every weekend, having to visit different cities in the area to get the variety that we want. What surprised me is the large difference in how well different firearms perform for us. I kept thinking, oh, bigger's always better, but some of the, either compact or subcompact 9s are shooting much better than my Glock 19, groups that are half the size. I'm still dry firing. I've got my instructor recertification coming up. John, how about you?
Well, I hope everyone had a good Father's Day. Mine was quiet, and that was actually pretty good. About the only gun news I have to share is that I got a couple of cool new books in. One is a reloading manual for Australian-made bullets from a company called Willie.
Do they spin
And the
the
other's
opposite way?
That's only the barrels.
Only
But the other is a book on custom cartridges. Both are kind of gun nerd stuff. There's an old-time reloading store called Huntington Dice Specialties is going out of business, so I got them at a discount. And the Huntingtons were the founders of RCBS, a very well-known reloading company that makes dies, presses, and other reloading equipment. So, anyway, how about you, Paul and Susan?
Well, for me, it's been the week is we've been doing a lot of dealing with a personal situation. We had a loss in the family, and there's repercussions from that. We've been doing a lot of dealing with that. We did have a planning call for AmCon last week. I'm really, really looking forward to getting that more wrapped up. We're about 90% of the way there. And so we're, not for me, not a lot of gun stuff, just doing bullets and getting ready. So, yeah, we are getting what's happening. You are probably hearing some echoing. Carrie Ann is trying to get connected, and that's where the audio issues are coming in. And as soon as I see her turn her camera on and that she's ready to go, I will. I'll go ahead and pop her in. Nope, and I see a camera. Let me go ahead. It's going to take me just a second to get everything fixed here. But she uses the same camera that Charlie does. When she adjusts her camera, it makes the same noise. Let me come in here and bring Carrie Ann in.
I'm so sorry.
Life, it's this is live video. You get to watch the sausage being made. So
I'll explain later.
oh, okay. Get me. I got to get a couple comments in here as we get going, and that'll
Please.
also help me to fix the other screen.
Yeah.
George Geller says, "I'm ready for some honest, well-informed gun talk." Boy, did you come to the wrong place.
Hey, John's here. Who else?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, and he also followed up with Polite Society podcast. Waits for no woman. So,
God.
anyway, Carrie,
That's what you look like.
Yeah. I do need you to tilt your camera down just a little bit, if you would, Carrie Ann, and we're going to go ahead and live and on the air say, what have you been up to since the last time you beat? I know what you've been up to. You've been up to fighting for our rights.
Oh my gosh.
Massachusetts has been full of it. There's these listening tours that you've been going to. And tell us a little bit about attending those and what you've been up to otherwise.
So the listening tours I've been going to, we've been there's been 11 of them. So Representative Michael Day, he was the one that spearheaded the whole entire, listening tours for the last, since I think February. And they're just reorganizing and evaluating our gun laws. And so we've been there, which is great because it's really put teal on the map. So the DC project was not really recognized, and since the listening tours happened, and here we are, and they're trying to figure out who the women in teal are. So there you go.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's go ahead and do this, guys. We've got, let me see if this works. And the answer is no, it does not. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to step aside to our first break. When we come back, we've got a lot of news to talk about, and we'll get to all that right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, we are back. This is the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. I'm trying desperately to find the correct setup and the correct buttons to make sure that... There we go. Everything is all set. Let's go ahead and get started, guys. First news story, actually, it just hit today. I got this off a website called India Educationary. There's a study from the Oregon State University, and I'm just going to read some of the story here. American consumers use their understanding of gun rights when judging the morality of civilians' use of guns to protect themselves from crime. And that assessment varies depending on specific scenarios, new research from Oregon State University shows. The study's objective was to explore Americans' understanding of the Second Amendment, the only constitutional right that explicitly entitles individuals to a consumer product. Well, there's bias there to start with, and how that understanding guides which gun-related behaviors are deemed morally acceptable. The authors also examined how recent court rulings and legal market changes have expanded consumers' rights to use gun for protection against crime. I'm going to go ahead and skip down here a little bit. There are 2 specific quotes that I want to get to out of this article. The unique thing about responsibilization with regards to guns is a shift over time in what is considered responsible behavior with the encouragement of lobbying groups and other market factors. Behaviors such as carrying guns in public for self-protection, which were once prohibited by law, are now considered by many to be something that responsible people do. The researchers also found that consumers' understanding of the Second Amendment may not be always supported by current law, which can put them in legal jeopardy. For example, some people in the study indicated the Second Amendment gives them the right to use force to protect against property theft, but U.S. law generally does not recognize the right to use force in that scenario. Guys, I don't know if you had a chance to read this article in its entirety. It's actually it's almost middle of the road. Coming from a university, it is not totally left-leaning, and that shocked me. Anybody want to comment on this one? John, you got a good comment in show notes.
Is responsibilization even a word? I mean, talk about it, academic speak. But, I do find it interesting that this is coming from a marketing professor, and that may be possibly part of the reason that it's not as left-wing. It's coming from a college of business, not from the College of Arts and Sciences, where you would tend to have even more left-wing people. I say that as somebody who used to be in a College of Arts and Sciences in grad school. So, Rob?
Our neighbors are wiser than our politicians and our professors.
Yeah. What I see happening here is the moving of, and I hope, I don't know, I haven't seen him comment yet, but I hope Pete over at Gun Websites is watching, because I'm going to use one of his favorite terms. This is the moving of the Overton window, and it's moving on our side, and that's a good thing.
I've noticed that marketing professors are being used to target firearms manufacturers. So I'll read this article carefully.
John, you're more. It sounded like you were getting ready to say something, and you're much more academically accomplished than I am.
Well, this isn't the only. Well, I pulled her up on her website at the Oregon State. She has actually written a number of papers going back to 2017. So this is not necessarily new research for her. And I vaguely remember corresponding with her a couple, 3 years ago to get a copy of a paper. Vaguely remember it. But, and, she sent it to me, so that was nice. But I'm going to put a link up for Rob so that he can find her other papers.
Thank you.
But yeah, I really think that what she's saying is the public is viewing, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but from what I was able to get out of this, the public is viewing that they are able to do more things with their firearms responsibly, and they're doing that than they were. It doesn't specify the number of years ago, but that used to be you couldn't carry a gun. I'm thinking that might have been the 1960s. So this is us regaining rights, and it's finally showing up here. So, Rob, we talked about this one on Saturday, but I've got it in show notes here again today. You want to take this one? This next one?
Is that BioFire? No, House. Okay. Yeah. House Republicans passed a resolution that would repeal a Biden administration rule that tightened federal regulations on stabilizing braces. Stabilizing braces are an accessory that's been in a couple of mass shootings in the U.S. over the last decade. The resolution passed on party lines. It was a fairly contentious debate. The Republicans accused the administration of executive overreach, and the Democrats said that any gun bill was being used to help kill people. Interestingly enough, two Democrats voted in support of the Republican resolution, and two Republicans voted against it. It was introduced by Andrew Goyle, a Republican out of Georgia. It goes to the Senate, which will never take it up. President Biden has promised a veto. Overriding a presidential veto would require 2/3 majorities in the House and Senate, so that's not going to happen. The new rule issued by BTFE in January treated guns that had a stabilizing brace as if they were NFA items, particularly short-barreled rifles. Basically, if you put a brace on your AR, it suddenly is like a sawed-off shotgun. That's been heavily regulated since the 1930s.
Yeah.
John, talk to me.
Well, I got to agree with you that this is definitely a show bill, and also that even if the Senate did pass it, Biden will veto it. But I think Congress needs to do this if they want to preserve their power. the power of the legislative branch to make law rather than letting the executive branch make law through regulation.
Right.
And as it is, I mean, the American people have done, what is it called, an Irish vote on this? Maybe 250,000 have registered during the amnesty period out of maybe, or quite possibly, 40 million. So what is that?
Oh. We
It's not
ignored
even
them.
1%. They ignored it. It's less than 1%. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to bother with this crap.
Isn't that interesting? I think of gun owners as being extremely law-abiding until they get a piece of silliness from the BATFE and go, yeah, no, we're not doing it. John,
It's like-
you go ahead.
I was going to say it was like the people in New York and I think Connecticut who just like, basically ignored the law to saying, you have to register your assault weapon. They're like, yeah, right, sure.
There is a matter here because agencies have so overreached the legislative, the written legislation. Courts have been reining in the agencies and saying, hey, show me where it says that in the law. So even though this won't make it to become a law, it may show legislative intent and may influence some judges in ways we don't completely understand yet.
I think you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I commented Saturday, the only way this is going to become law is if it will not go through as a solo bill, period. Not going to happen. Biden will veto it, and they don't have the votes to override it. The only way is through a big omnibus spending bill, something like the the National Defense Authorization Act. So and those usually go through in the fall. If this goes as part of that, there's a slim chance. But then again, you've got to get the people in the Congress to stuff it in there and keep it in there. We'll see. So,
I don't understand.
yeah, your thoughts? You've been silent all shows so far. You got any thoughts on this, Carrie Ann?
Any of these laws that they're doing to restrict us does not make any sense because we're not the bad guys. I mean, I shake my head and I'm like, I don't understand any of this because it really, ultimately, it comes down to we're not the bad guys. And I think that the legislators are just not educated. Anytime that they speak and they don't know what they're talking about. And it just frustrates me because, I mean, what I'm seeing right now here in Massachusetts is, Representative Day is meeting with the Moms Demand Action, but they're not meeting with us. So if you're going to be a representative, you need to be a representative and listens to both sides. And they're not.
Yeah, even more, and I think this may apply to you, Carrie Ann. In Massachusetts, you're allowed to have a pistol, but you're not allowed to have a short-barreled rifle. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. It is correct. And again, it what frustrates me more is the fact that it's just we're not the bad guys. The bad guys don't follow the rules. So no matter what you do, you can restrict us and make all these rules all you want. And it doesn't matter because we're not the bad guys. The bad guys go in, they purposely find soft targets, they purposely find what we can't have, and the government just puts it on there like, hey, this is what they can't have, so we're going to have this, and we're going to go in and do that. You know what I mean? It makes me very upset because I don't know why I can't get, a meeting. Why can't I get a meeting? You should be asking both sides to,
Yes. They should. Get this comment in here. George says it's worth knowing the difference between law-abiding and responsible gun ownership. I was talking with Alex Uli on Friday on The Bullet, and I think this conversation happened after we were done off the air, and I cannot claim that this is an original thought because it's not. I'm copying this from somebody. I cannot remember who, and I apologize to whoever came up with this first. You deserve credit. I'm done with law-abiding gun owner because saying I can't put an accessory on a gun that is 100% legal, that you previously said was 100% legal to do, sorry, I'm no longer a law-abiding gun owner. I'm now a responsible gun owner.
Right.
There you go. Yes, good.
Yep. I like that. I mean, why can I, I can buy a car, I can put all these fancy things on there that could, essentially just cause more problems, but it doesn't matter. I can, smoke pot, get in a car and drive, and it's okay. And I don't understand that. I don't understand any of this because there have been multiple times where I'm in a car where people are smoking pot and they're stoned out of their mind driving a car. But that's okay. And it just, nothing makes sense. I just shake my head. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It goes back to what I was.
Here I am.
It goes back to when I was a teenager. I thought we all should have a James Bond car with machine guns built into it. So, you're driving too slow, get out of the way. You're tailgating, have some grease on the road.
I am admittedly a geek. One of my favorite television shows of all time was Mythbusters. And Mythbusters actually put not real, they were airsoft machine guns on the front end of a car and tested, could you actually hit things if you put machine guns hard mounted in the front of a car? And you can! They proved it. Actually fairly reliably. Wasted a lot of ammo, but you got some hits. So, yeah, now that we went really, really far afield on that one, Rob, you already claimed this next story.
Yeah, I love this story. I'm a California refugee, so this is my heart beat fast. The inventor of the latest gun with a biometric lock is backing a lawsuit against one of California's most restrictive gun laws. The founder of the BioFire handgun wrote an amicus brief. It supports the case against California's, quote, unsafe handgun act. He believes that handgun roster stops firearms safety innovations. It locks old guns in place and won't let new guns be sold. It bans the sale of any handgun that isn't on the state's approved list, and that list hasn't added a firearm in 10 years. He said the roster doesn't serve the needs of Californians. It arbitrarily restricts the options that are available. California is to guns as Cuba is to cars. You can't take advantage of all the advancements in technology, including gun safety, that have made since the guns were grandfathered in, close quote. The company's involvement in the case is at least a public relations win for the California Rifle and Pistol Association and other plaintiffs in the case. Because remember, California says, oh, we need biometric locks, but we won't let them on the roster.
Well, and I think even if they do let them on the roster, I think this, because I've read several interviews and watched, honestly, several interviews that are on YouTube of the owner of this company. And I don't want to say he's one of us, but he's that far away. He doesn't want the gun introduced in New Jersey because then it would trigger their Safe Gun Act where every gun dealer would have to stock it. He wants his product to live and die via the market. If people want it, that's fantastic. He'll supply it. He doesn't want to force people to buy his firearm.
Wouldn't that be fantastic if he didn't sell it to, well, okay, realistically, that's not how the market works. Meaning, if he sells a gun, he's going to sell it to a middleman that might cover 5 or 6 states.
Yeah.
And they'll sell it wherever they want. So, interesting.
Well, in New Jersey, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know we've discussed it in the past, once a viable smart gun is introduced, under their law, doesn't it have to be sold in their state? I mean, they're saying it has to be made available.
It has to be
Do you
in
remember anything about that?
in every gun store. Yes, every gun store must carry a safe gun when one is introduced.
I would say not until every cop carries one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, let's face it. What I don't like about smart guns is if I program it to me, I can't hand it to Susan. This particular gun, you can have, I think, 4 or 5 different users. But I have a lot of friends here in my hometown that if I were out and about, I would not have an issue in the world handing a backup gun to. I'm not going to take the 15 minutes to program the darn gun before I hand it off to somebody. Great comment here. C&T Designs at Arms just popped in a fantastic comment. The government will try to force biometric locks on guns. As soon as they do, criminals will learn how to defeat the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
do you remember the last smart gun? A guy went, it's really interesting, until I put a magnet right here, and then I deactivated the whole thing, and I just pressed the trigger, and it fires.
Yeah, you had
Oops.
to wear a special watch to fire this firearm. And they eventually figured out why does it do well, because the watch has a magnet in it, and yeah, you just use a different magnet, and all of a sudden you've got a live firearm.
Right. Ruh-roh.
I see.
Right.
Carrie, what you got?
I mean, I'm a firearm instructor. I borrow firearms from my friends all the time because, I might not have this, or I want this for this class or whatever. And, my computer or my phone could get hacked, and that's what's going to happen now with a smart gun. What does that mean? I don't even understand.
Yeah, this particular one, smart gun that this guy owns, or the company that is made by the company that this guy owns, supposedly where you program it is through either a computer or your smartphone, but the gun itself, they say, does not have access to the internet, so therefore it cannot be hacked.
Well, I just read something the other day. You see these little blingy things that people put around the place where you put your car key in?
No.
They may be smart. Well, you don't, but some people do.
Okay.
Anyway, people are having trouble getting their car to start once they've done that. And the reason is your key fob has an RFID chip in it, and the little piece of what looks to be plastic, but which is actually metallic backed, blocks the signal to the car, and the car will not start. So you put on a special grip on this gun, and it's not going to work.
Interesting.
Yep.
Exactly.
A dollar piece of plastic, and it keeps your car from starting.
Right, that's my point. I'm like, no smart thing for my gun.
Well, and we're all functioning adults here, and if you are a family person and your children are by you right now, hang on a minute, this next the comment's just fine. Where I'm going to go with the comment may not be. So plug your kids' ears or shuffle them out of the room for just a minute here. CNT Designs and Arms says, I can't get into my phone using biometric features half the time. I don't want a gun. I can't fire because my hands are dirty. Where I'm going to go with this is this. Gunfights are inherently violent. If you are in a gunfight with somebody, in other words, more than one person firing a firearm, their goal is to kill you. Your goal is to kill them first. That involves a lot of blood. That involves bad things happening. Your palms are going to be incredibly sweaty. Your adrenaline's going all over the place. What's that going to do to your handprint? What's that going to do to any biometric firearm's ability to recognize you and release the bullet when it's supposed to be released?
Compromised.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Safety is really not a goal. It's a constraint. We constrain the way we train because we want to do it safely. We don't want to be injured. But safety isn't the goal during a gunfight. Far from it. We're trying to minimize an immediate, unavoidable lethal threat. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to move gently enough that I won't injure. No. It's a violent, chaotic mess.
Yep. And you don't know what you're going to be involved in. You could be involved in a lot of different scenarios that could compromise your fingerprints and everything else, and you don't know the situation. And it's just
that would be, Carrie Ann, you just made me think. So if we're going to be realistic, we probably want to get get a heavyweight punching bag, do a couple of minutes of bare-handed punching. Your knuckles are going to be so trashed, and then take your handprint on the biometric gun.
Yep.
That might be closer to realistic for you. Ooh, I don't like it, but there it is.
Well, I have the biometric on my phone, and when I washing my dishes, even washing my dishes, it won't work. So,
Right.
I mean, it's just not an ideal situation, especially if you're in a critical dynamic situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me throw
John.
another thing in here.
Yeah.
I have understood that, especially with some cholesterol drugs, statin drugs, they can almost erase your fingerprints. Who's the one telling me that? Liston Matthews. It almost happened to him. His fingerprints barely would register when he had to be fingerprinted for a carry permit.
Nurses, too, have the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Renee, when she went to get her finger printed in Rhode Island, they had to put lotion on her her fingers, because they wouldn't recognize. It's just not a good idea, my opinion.
John, I think you got our next news story, man.
I do, and it comes from Great Falls, Montana. Tom Van Hoos has owned Highland Creek Outfitters in Great Falls for 13 years. As he pulled into work on Wednesday morning, 20 heavily armed Internal Revenue Service criminal investigation agents swarmed his store. The IRS agents, in full battle rattle, had been mustered from as far away as Denver and Idaho to serve a warrant for his financial records. He told us the IRS claims that he has underreported and failed to report millions of dollars of income. He has denied this categorically and told us that anyone who knows anything about the gun business knows there's not a lot of extra revenue in running a retail gun store and range. True. Highland Creek Outfitters was closed down Wednesday while agents rifled through the records. The IRS CID troops took 10 hours to copy the information on his computers and download his point-of-sale software info. But what really concerned Mr. Van Hoos is that in addition to accounting the sales records, the agents confiscated 13 years of Form 4473s and copied his firearms acquisition disposition record. There's no revenue or financial data there. While it's not here, I've also understand that he has good relations with his local ATF office. When they were saying that we're going to take your 4473s and copy your bound book, he called his ATF people, and they said, "No, you can't do that." 30 minutes later, they call him back and said, "Let him take it. You got to let him do that." Rob?
Yeah, I've heard comments that we should eliminate the armed agents in the ATF and IRS. If those agencies need armed agents, I can imagine that they might, then they should have to go ask local sheriffs, because that stops this silliness. What's interesting to me is that if a judge later says that the 4473s should not have been copied, how will we ever know that a federal agency obeyed the judge? We won't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And matter of fact, there was and we talked about this on the Weekend Bullet on Saturday. I don't think it's in today's show notes. Senator Joni Ernst out of Iowa introduced a bill in the Senate to eliminate armed agents from the IRS. And Citizens Committee immediately put out a press release saying this is a great idea. I as well think it's a great idea. I can't, and I've been still thinking about it, I can't think of a single federal agency, with a possible exception of the National Weather Service, that doesn't have an armed contingent, something like a SWAT team. That includes, and I know for a fact, the Food and Drug Administration has an armed SWAT team that they will send occasionally to places like Smithfield Foods here in Sioux Falls.
Department of Education.
Yeah. Why do they need an armed SWAT team? And guys, one more question about this. Does anybody look? The ATF, and we've covered this months ago, but the ATF has been building a backdoor registry.
Yes,
for a very long time. You guys think this might be connected with that somehow?
100%.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Control.
What I wonder is, suppose eventually the Republicans get control of the Senate, the House, maybe the presidency, could they ever root that roster out? Or is it merely, we can't find it until the next Democrat president is in office?
I think they should just send staffers with super magnets through their computer rooms.
Love that. Or here's something else we ought. Again, this is a pipe dream, but I'm hoping we need to just abolish the damn ATF. Just get rid of it. Everybody who's an ATF agent, I'm sorry, you either transfer to the FBI or you hit the unemployment line. And that goes from the director on down to the janitors. You either transfer to another agency or you're just out of a job. And every little bit of what the ATF has needs to be sold, including all paper records need to be destroyed. So
originally they were related to the Internal Revenue Service. They were collecting money for imports of alcohol.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they
cigarettes.
still do. And cigarettes. And now I'm going... Go ahead, John.
Yeah, they didn't get transferred to the Department of Justice until the Department of Homeland Security was established. They were under Treasury forever. Well, from 1972 onwards.
You know, there are lots of countries that don't heavily tax alcohol. Maybe we could join them.
Sounds good to me.
I'd take that. We'd suffer more alcoholism, but we'd get rid of the ATF. No, it's getting rid of the ATF is worth it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and even let's about, well, this is a statistic from when I was driving truck, okay? So
Yeah.
47 cents of every gallon, and that included times when we were under the Trump administration and gas was $2 a gallon. 47 cents of every gallon goes for taxes, and the majority of those taxes go to the federal government. I would
Yeah.
suspect that about 25% of what you pay for beer or alcohol when you go to your
Right.
convenience store probably goes to the federal government.
Look over my shoulder.
Yeah.
Everything there was taxed. Every label had to be approved by the Tax and Trade Bureau.
Let's get totally rid of the ATF, and let's get rid of the. I don't want there to be a $200 tax stamp if I want to have a barrel that's 15 3/4 inches. I don't want there to be a $200 tax stamp if I happen to have a weapon that goes bang bang or bang 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 instead of just bang. I don't want there to be a $200 tax stamp for anything. I want, and if that means with the ATF going away that, oh, by the way, I don't drink, but everybody else gets liquor for 25% less, hey, I'm cool with it. I'm going to go ahead and take this next story. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene hit out against President Joe Biden early Saturday morning, accusing the president of lying about gun violence statistics that he says that children are that guns are the leading cause of death among children. It's from a tweet she just simply said liar. The response came after Biden posted a tweet on Friday evening called for a national ban on assault weapons and AR-15. Wait a minute. Called for a national ban on assault weapons and AR-15 style firearms, claiming that gun violence is the #1 killer of children nationwide. More than car accidents and more than cancer, he wrote. We cannot let that become just another statistic. The statistic shared by Biden is only partially correct and likely relies on data from 2020 and 2021, which is the latest available data by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The claim that guns are the leading cause of death for children is accurate if it includes infants under 1 year old and extends the age range to include 19-year-olds and presumably 18-year-olds, according to a fact check by Snopes. If those two parameters are eliminated, the statistics tell a different story. That's because infants have a different set of age-specific causes of death that are unique to the age group, such as birth defects, preterm birth, sudden infant death syndrome, pregnancy complications, and others. Additionally, teenagers aged 18 and 19 have their own unique set of causes of death that could alter the result, including vehicle-related injuries and, belonging to a gang.
Mm-hmm.
That last is added by me. What stunned me here is Snopes. Snopes is so far left, they don't have right arms. They've got special keyboards that can be activated entirely with the left hand. That's how far left they are. And for them to come over and say, hey, that's not quite accurate, that's stunning. Rob, you're up in show notes. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think you stumbled over your words, Paul. To make Biden's claim true, he had to get rid of infant deaths. Because otherwise, infant deaths, children are extremely fragile, unusually fragile. Once you remember all the stupid thing you did as an 8-year-old, we're all surprised that we survived. Yeah, we're actually kind of hard. We're hard to kill once we reach that age. Here's the part that bothers me. This is nowhere near close to being true if we get rid of the gang-related deaths in our failed Democrat cities.
Yes.
John, talk to me.
Well, I'm looking at CDC. and it's become more and more politicized since the pandemic. I mean, from 2020 onwards, it's just become, oh yeah, we gotta shut down everything. And I think the new director will make it even worse. Dr. Mandy Cohen, or as I used to refer to as Little Dr. Mandy, she headed the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services until last year, and some of her diktats were so bad that it could have put many rural hospitals out of business by saying, oh, you can't do these procedures, it's not right. What makes it worse is her medical license expired in 2010, and her only real claim to fame that got her into government was that she co-founded Doctors for Obama, or Doctors for America. She looks innocent. Beware, America.
Yeah.
All right, Carrie Ann, you're up in show notes. What do you got?
So recently we went to, like I said, was talking about the listening tours, and we went to 2 listening tours. We went one in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and one in, oh God, I forgot where we were now, but it was another inner city. And unfortunately, the same thing is what we heard in both cities, which was, there's not enough support for the inner cities. There's not enough support for these kiddos to get out of situations they don't want to be in. So gun violence, crime, and everything else. So it was just, there's not enough support. You know what I mean? There's not enough support to back them up regarding what they need. It's not so much about gun violence. It's about getting them out of the situation that they're living in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Failed family, failed city, failed job market, lather, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, exactly. And, it was, there was somebody on the panel that actually said, I had no idea, I don't understand anything that you're talking about, because we stood up and we started talking about, they kept talking about gun violence. We stood up and we started talking about, anything related to the firearms. And they I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand what you're talking about. And we would love to have you come down and talk to these parents about safe storage. And I said, absolutely. And they never called me back. So it's sad, that they don't want to reach out to us. We want to help. We want to make safe communities.
Carrie Ann, you've listened on this tour. I wasn't there, haven't read any transcripts. My perception of the way, quote, city kids get a gun is a gangbanger can't be caught with a gun. He's not going to lock it up in a gun safe. It gets stuffed under the steps, and that's where one of the neighborhood kids finds it. Now, that may be the community gun that all the gang uses when they go rob. We're not fixing that with gun locks and safe storage requirements.
No, we're not. You're absolutely right. We're not. But when you teach a kiddo that this is not the world you want to live in, this is not where you want to be, and you teach mothers, because we found that there was mothers that wanted to protect their family, and they couldn't, because 1, they couldn't afford it, 2, they didn't know what to do, and 3, they were afraid of having a gun in their house because they were afraid of it being stolen or getting the wrong hands, obviously. Right. And so there was a lot of scenarios that were in these, these listening tours were such an eye-opener for me, because you just felt so bad. At the same time, you were mad, because we're not the bad guys. These gangs are getting these firearms illegally, right? We all know this. They're not following the rules. They're getting them illegally. The kiddos are being forced to do things that they don't want to because A, their moms don't have the money, B, they're hungry. and that's what we were hearing. You know, they don't have food. There's not enough resources that they need for the household, and so these kiddos feel as though that they need to go out and do these things because they want to bring home something for their mom or something for their siblings, and that broke my heart because why is this happening? You know, and they're focusing on us being the you know, we're the bad guys. We're not, you know, and it just was sad. It was just so sad. And
Gotcha.
I want to get some comments in here real quick. You get this first one in from Charlie. He says, not many children killed by AR-15. Proof needed. Dana, the guy that writes our show notes. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, Charlie, they're going to point to a few rare, horrific mass murders. Okay? So they'll use sensationalism. By the way, and you, Charlie, you know it, and I know it. Most mass murders are committed with a handgun.
Yeah.
But that is what they'll cling to.
Dana says, drop suicides, it changes it even more. And
oh, yeah.
And yeah. CNT Designs and Arms is on it tonight. He says CDC has a site where you can compare 3 causes of death, and if you look up accidental causes, household chemicals kill more kids than guns.
Yep. Truth.
Yep.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be a resource to the community. That's all I wanted to be, is just a resource to the community to try to help them understand the importance of firearm education and safety, because that's the key to everything, not legislation. And education, I think, really is the key, and media does not allow that to happen.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to our next one. John, do you want to take this one, man, the Santa Monica story?
Sure. The City Council on Tuesday unanimously directed staff to draft an ordinance that would be the best gold standard for placing restrictions on gun sales and ownership. The measure, which must be prepared within 60 days, could ban the display of guns at the city's only licensed gun retailer and impose an annual fee on gun owners to pay for gun safety programs. That was sarcasm, by the way. It also could require that gun sales be videotaped and that gun owners safely store guns at home and in vehicles. Report guns that are lost or stolen, and carry liability insurance. We want to make it as difficult as possible for guns to get in the hands of people who might do something, said Council Member Caroline Torosis, who co-sponsored the discussion item.
People who might do something, like defend themselves, or, I don't know.
Rob?
Sir.
You have a comment here.
I actually...
oh, yeah, I'm sorry, that was a leftover.
Yeah.
Here's what bothers me. This notion of gun manufacturers being liable for the criminals using a firearm. I want to know if that means that the state is then liable when we use a gun properly and stop a criminal, since I thought that was the job of the police and government. You know, since I had to defend myself, you guys failed, gun control failed. Yeah, I'll take $1,000 a criminal. That sounds like a fair. Actually, if we're going to equal lawyers' fees, the sort of punishment they want to delve out to the gun manufacturers, we're talking about tens of thousands per armed defense. And yeah, okay, the gun manufacturers and the gun owner can split it. I'd like that.
I agree. I mean, defending people in economic terms sounds like a public good. And the public, all of us should support that. And obviously the only way to do that would be through tax money, But of course, I think elected politicians should have a higher tax rate than the rest of us. But you know, they take on that responsibility. They're taking on the responsibility to pay more.
And
There you
again,
go.
Another example of C&T being on fire tonight. How is the government going to know if I'm storing my guns right? Are the cops going to be able to come to my house and inspect my storage?
They will if you live in Australia. Think back to the Heller decision, though. That was at the heart of part of the Heller decision, being forced to keep guns such that they were inoperable. And Heller said no.
Yeah, thank goodness, number one, we don't live in Australia. But Santa Rosa, I want to say, is another just another city in California. They had a very similar city ordinance that passed, and what they're saying is you must carry insurance. So that's my big issue here is the God, I'm trying to fix some audio issues here. Just a second. There we go. Let's try that one. You must carry insurance. However, the city is not enforcing that. I think the reason they're not enforcing that is they don't want the first person to get a ticket to sue them and then therefore knock the entire house of cards down.
Yep.
Let me see here. Let me get this one in here quick. Since I am in California, I would get insurance if using CCW that I don't have because all the restrictions already in place. Meanwhile, crime is off the charts. Yeah, Rob, is there anything at all about California and California politics that makes sense? You were there for a long time.
Absolutely. It depends on how you, who benefits. If you can imagine that Democrat politicians want to get more promotions within the party, more campaign contributions from anti-gun billionaires, it all becomes clear. Do I think the public benefits? No. And that's not Ohio.
All right. Last one I'm going to take. This one out of Belgrade, Serbia. Serbia has one of the highest rates of gun ownership in the world, deep political divides, and a culture of violence. It may sound familiar to many Americans, but after 2 mass shootings in 2 days rocked the country last month, Serbians did something different. They started handing in their guns. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets to demand action on guns in cities across the small European nation. And some believe in the U.S., where a series of mass shootings overnight Saturday killed at least 4 people, the United States could learn from the country's response. My first thought to that is, and all the gangbangers in Serbia were the first ones in line to go hand their guns in, right?
Yeah.
I have a real snarky comment on this. Being that it's Serbia and all, does this mean that there are going to be no more Serbian efforts at genocide?
Well, no, because they're all turning their guns in. So, therefore, it's going to become a Shangri-La, man. It's going to become the perfect place to live. All, rainbows and unicorns and
every Bosnian and Croatian is cheering.
Yes. We're going back to California. Let me get Charlie's comment in here. Charlie Delano. Trudeau said in 2010 he would never ban guns. Then 2023 banned all handguns. Newsom wants to be Trudeau.
Yeah.
He wants to be, but honestly, guys, have we talked? I don't know if we've talked about the 28th Amendment here.
Yeah, we did.
We did last week? Okay.
Yeah.
28th Amendment and the proposed 28th Amendment to the Constitution, in my mind, is Gavin Newsom saying, look, we cannot do what we want to do because of the Second Amendment. We've lost because of the Second Amendment. Therefore, let's change the Second Amendment. That's what I see going on.
Could I modify what you said? Because I don't disagree. Gavin Newsom is saying, we can't do what my billionaire donors want done unless we get rid of the Second Amendment.
Okay.
Gavin doesn't have a thought. He's a spokesperson for his donors.
Okay, yeah, I'll buy that. Okay, no, I cannot put... Robert, fantastic comment that I cannot put on the air.
Can't put on the air.
All right, let's go ahead.
So we get an after show tonight.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and we're going to step aside to break and executive decision. This is going to be our final break. We're going to do DGUs and do our what's happening in media and put the show to bed all in one segment, hoping to get out of here in 90 minutes. So we're going to step aside to one final break. We're going to hear from the complete combatant. We'll be right back with our DGU segment right after this. This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off. All right, welcome back to our final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information and education, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. Let's see here. We got what? 3 of them. Who wants to take the first one? Rob, you up?
Sure. Welcome to Memphis, Tennessee. Terrence Montgomery received a call from a neighbor. It's early morning hours, May 22nd. The neighbor noticed something on his surveillance feed that, hey neighbor, I think someone's trying to steal your girlfriend's car again. That particular Hyundai had been stolen once before, fortunately recovered. The homeowner throws on his flip-flops and runs outside. He's not so foolish. He brings his firearm for protection. The car thieves open fire at him, and their shots shoot out his neighbor's windows. Montgomery shot back 2 or 3 times. One of the neighbors told the news station, "The bullets through his apartment and almost killed my kids while they're lying in bed." That neighbor also grabbed a gun and returned fire at the attackers. After that, both men then received letters from the landlords telling them to move out. The leasing company said the two had become, quote, a nuisance and they threatened the safety of other residents. The two men were being blamed, but neither man had been charged with a crime nor shot into the apartments. Vernier said he was told by someone in the office that he, quote, "I can't stop people from coming on premises and trying to steal anything." Now they're fighting the eviction notice and forcing the management company to evict them through a general sessions civil court. That's where a judge has to grant the request. Quote, "We're the victims, but in some way, we're the ones getting evicted. What are we supposed to do? Let them steal our stuff?" Paul, what do you think?
What caught me is right when you started the story, the guy put on his flip-flops. And my question, flip-flops, what's next, man? Tactical Crocs?
Yeah.
I mean, granted,
I know people that have little tan holes on their feet from the holes in the Crocs. And that's high style footwear down here in the South.
Combat flip-flops, I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Well, I see, and this is, of course, nothing I would ever recommend, but this comes to my mind scrolling through Facebook, and this comes up again from time to time. Somebody's got a flip-flop tucked inside of his belt and using that as a holster. And, yeah, just please no. But, yeah, I feel for these guys. They come running out of the house. The bad guys start shooting at them. Then they answer back.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden they're being evicted for it? I think they need to own an apartment complex.
They were not the aggressors.
Yeah,
But this seems to be typical with the media. They always make us sound like we're the bad guys, even though we're not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now they turn it around all of a sudden.
Oh, I think I fixed it a little bit too much. Just a second, because you're on my end. I did something and you were breaking up. Could you repeat that, Carrie Ann?
I'm just saying that's what the media makes it. You know what I mean? So on the news, it sounds like it was us. We're the bad guys. We're the ones that did something bad when we're protecting our family and our property.
Yeah. I love this one. One of our occasional mates here is watching Charlie from Riding Shotgun and Charlie. The holes in the Crocs is where your dignity escapes. Okay. And Robert has a comment I can put up. So he says, does that leasing company own Lululemon? So, let's see here. Where are we at? John,
Queens.
You got the next one on Queens.
This is from Queens, New York. A 65-year-old Queens man was walking home at 2 a.m. when a 32-year-old attempted to rob him at the driveway leading to a parking garage. The, quote, erratic mugger demanded cash and cigarettes while flashing an unknown sharp object. The older man, identified as Charles Foner, then pulled out a revolver and shot the younger man multiple times in the chest. Foner then called 911. He told the emergency responders he had been involved in a shooting and the firearm was in his jacket pocket. A video viewed by the New York Post captures the alleged robber swaying back and forth, appearing to taunt Foner before charging at the 65-year-old, who pulls a gun and opens fire. The gravely wounded man attempted to run off but then stumbled and collapsed in the street, according to the surveillance footage. Sources say a pen was found in his right hand. Before the fatal shooting, sources said the alleged robber caused property damage at a pair of nearby buildings. The alleged robber, who has 15 arrests and a record of mental illness, died in the street. The shooter voluntarily turned himself in. Unfortunately for him, he has been charged with criminal possession of a weapon and possession of a firearm. A relative of the deceased mugger told the Post that they do not blame the shooter for defending himself. I don't fault him, not really, said the man, who is related to the mugger. Another cousin said he wasn't a bad kid. He really wasn't. It's because he stopped taking his damn pills. He was fine when he was taking his medication. If he tried to rob him, the guy's only defending himself. You can't blame him for defending himself. Foner told investigators that he bought the pistol used in Wednesday's shooting at a bar in the 1990s. Prosecutors said at the arraignment that got cut short over a conflict of interest with the judge, he was also found to have 30 handguns and rifles in his apartment, of which, quote, 6 were legally possessed. Rob?
Yeah, do you remember when we were supposed to have mandatory waiting periods when we bought a new gun? They would stop impulse-related violence. Man, if I only had a gun, I'd shoot somebody. So why do I need to register a firearm when I already have 6 legal firearms? Well, we want to make sure you're not a criminal, but I've got 6 guns already. What is the 7th, 8th, and 9th background check going to prove? That you can control my right to keep and bear arms and nothing more.
And then when you look at New York, you know that they're going to confiscate everything he has.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether it was possessed legally or not. If it was thee and me in Louisiana or North Carolina, everything would have been legally possessed. We wouldn't have had to jump through the hoops of New York State or New York City.
I shudder to think what would happen to me in New York City. I wouldn't be live on video on Monday nights, that's for darn sure.
Mm-hmm.
At least not for long.
Live from Rikers Island.
Telling ya. I am telling ya. Let me get one before we go to the last story here. Let me get this comment in here quick. Dana says, we've heard a number of similar stories from New York recently, mainly on the subway. Mental health is an issue. Mental health is a huge issue. You're right, Dana. And it's the problem is there's not a easy fix. There's not a not
a soundbite fix, that's for sure.
And whatever fix there is, it's not going to be comfortable.
Yeah, it's what happens when you put too many rats in a box.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right, let's go ahead and go to our next one here. Last one's out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Tulsa Police Department responded to the report of a home invasion on early Friday morning. The invader entered the home and took a few items, including the victim's vehicle, and threatened the victims before leaving. I guess he saw something else he wanted because 10 minutes later, he returned. While officers were en route to the home, they were told the robber was being held at gunpoint. What he didn't know is while he was gone from the home, the homeowner armed himself. When he produced a firearm again, the homeowner shot him. While the police officers were headed to the home, they received that information. When police arrived, they found an individual laying outside in the street. He received care at the scene, was then transported to a hospital with critical injuries, and was pronounced dead shortly after. Officers were going door to door to see if any home security cameras picked up anything about the incident. What this says to me is, number one, you need your own home security system. Number two is put that darn thing on you. If you're at home and you don't think anything's bad is going to happen, fantastic. You don't get to decide if the person is going to be, who's going to be breaking down your door, what time it is. You're not going to set an appointment.
Paul, I thought something was pretty... I had to dig through about 8 different write-ups until I found one that was a little more detailed.
Yep.
This guy breaks into a home, it's a mom and 2 adult children. He holds the mom at gunpoint, forces her to open. She goes, I don't have anything. Give me your car keys. Open the safe. So he's held this family at gunpoint for a while. He leaves and comes back thinking there's more he wants to take. The son has since gone upstairs to his room and come back with a shotgun. Now the robber comes in, points it turns out to be a pellet gun. The tip was painted black. The orange was written over. Well, when he does that, the son goes, I can fix this now. Boom. But you're absolutely right. Anybody who was armed would have stopped this guy.
Yeah. And when I hear shotgun, I think game ender. I think
yes,
you know.
But it wasn't. The guy ran outside. It was not did right there. He ran away. He got out of the house. Interesting.
Yeah. Where I kind of was gonna go, and forgive me if I'm thinking, I would rather have had a son that had a gun on the hip the whole time, stopped it the first time.
Yes.
Rather than a bad guy. I mean, the bad guy's not going to do any more robberies. That's the good news part of this. I'd rather the family weren't traumatized twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead. Let's go move on to our. Sorry, Robert Robert.
Can you post this one?
Yes, I can. I can and I will. But he's on fire too, man. Mental health in New York is an issue with the politicians as well. Yes.
By the time we get done treating the politicians, will there be enough room for everyone else? I understand.
Shutting the hospitals down, we're going to have more problems.
All right. Let's go ahead and I lost John there for a second. John, was it just video or did you entirely drop? I think John dropped. So let's. I promise I didn't push him.
Right.
But let's go ahead and get on to our next segment here real fast. Rob, lots of stuff going on in the world. Anything over at Slowfax blog you want to plug, or do you want to plug the self-defense gun stories, or what you got, man?
I'll take Slowfax for 100, Alex. There are plenty of proposals when the legislature's in session. And if you just read the news, that might sound like progress. Then you discover that most of those political proposals, they don't work. There was a shooting at a private school in Nashville a month ago. The press asked Tennessee Governor Lee what he was going to do to protect the children. The governor needed a soundbite answer, and he proposed more gun control. The press knew exactly how to report on that and gave the governor a pass. That's pathetic, and it could be tragic. The good news is that you and I, ordinary citizens, particularly the voters and parents in Tennessee, can fix it. Facts are, we already know how to protect our children in school, but more voters have to hear about it, or it'll never become reality in Tennessee. That article is called Making Politicians Smarter in Tennessee. It's at Slowfax. I think I've written 8 articles about protecting students in the last 3 weeks. My articles, after they leave Slowfax, are up at Clash Daily and at OpsLens. Is John back, or can I pitch him?
I am back.
He's back.
There you go, John.
Well, other than some posts on bourbon, watches, Bunker Hill, and Father's Day, the major post this week was actually a guest post by former NRA Director Rocky Marshall. He has updated his estimates of 2023 annual revenue for the NRA. He uses a multiple of gun sales as his forecasting factor. He estimates that NRA will generate about $195 million in revenue, but unfortunately their stated budget is $230 million. Read the whole thing. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
So the NRA is doing a version of California budgeting.
Well, the U.S. government. Yeah.
Yeah.
John, did they talk about how much that is for Wayne's legal bills?
No, not in this. But there have been other articles that said that programs have been cut dramatically because legal bills have gone up. The thing that really upsets me other than Wayne's legal bills that I saw, was that the NRA, which is good, was filing to intervene in an SAF case. As SAF said, this is great. Unfortunately, the lawyer handling the intervention is Bill Brewer, who has no clue about the Second Amendment.
Right.
There are plenty of good Second Amendment lawyers out there. Why are they wasting money at $1,500 an hour on somebody who doesn't know whatever?
I think what that is about was the pistol brace rule, where named plaintiffs, if you were part of the NRA, you were covered by the pistol brace rule, and the NRA said, "Hey, we climb in, and could our members be covered?" And
that's
SAF
exactly
said,
right.
More the merrier.
Yeah. Absolutely. And welcome aboard. Let's see what we can do together. That's exactly what I'm very, very, very tightly paraphrasing what was said in the press release from SAF. But basically, the entire thing from the SAF side was welcome aboard. Let's see what we can do together.
Exactly. And that's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've said
they just need a better lawyer to handle it.
Yeah. I've said a million times. I'm going to make it 1,000,001 right now. We need a strong NRA. We need NRA to succeed. Yep. Anything we can do, anything I can do to help that, I will help that. We need a good, strong NRA. So let's go ahead.
Okay. Now the question I have to ask you is the NRA stronger with Wayne or without Wayne? That's a podcast on another date. Carrie Ann?
Carrie Ann, what you got that you want to promote? I know you've been doing some more shows. And it's been a while since you've been on the air.
I know. I am so sorry. I haven't been on for a while. It's been a lot going on. It's tough because of listening tours. I keep saying that, but it was a lot for the DC project here in Massachusetts, trying to get everything organized and getting everybody there. Some weeks it was twice a week. So it was a lot, and then have family and a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old, and it was just a lot. So, but I got some really great news. So I'm the women's program assistant for GOAL, Gun Owners Action League. So I'm really excited about that, and I've been working with John Green, the director of GOAL, for the education, and trying to come up with some women's programs, and I'm helping him with the Women's on Target programs. And so I'm really, really excited to be part of this. It's actually finally a little job for me on the side. So I'm really excited. So I'm hoping to get some more women's programs and getting some more women involved in advocacy and education. So that's what's been going on over here.
Very, very cool. Well, that does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. So for Amy, Dana, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, Carrie Ann, and Rob.
Until next time,
stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, the audio recording is done. We're only going out to the YouTube and Facebook and Rumble streams. Extremely short post show tonight. I'm not going to put that comment up because I want to be still up on Facebook and YouTube and the rest of them. Robert, that was funny as heck. I will put it up for my staff once we go away.
Yeah.
But I want desperately to keep broadcasting. So everybody who's watched, everybody who's commented, thank you. Please do come join us next time. And come join Rob and I, 6 p.m. Central Time tomorrow night for The Bullet. That's going to do it, folks. Shutting the streams down.